The Battle of Konotop, a Battle of Sosnivka, was fought between a coalition led by the Hetman of Ukrainian Cossacks Ivan Vyhovsky and cavalry units of the Russian Tsardom under the command of Semyon Pozharsky and Semyon Lvov, supported by Cossacks of Ivan Bezpaly, on June 29, 1659, near the town of Konotop, Ukraine, during the Russo-Polish War Vyhovsky's coalition, in which the Crimean Tatars of Mehmed IV Giray played a major role, defeated the Russians and their allies and forced the main Russian army to interrupt the siege of Konotop. However, the result of the battle only intensified political tensions in Ukraine and led to Vyhovsky's removal from power several months later. Prelude. The Battle of Konotop took place during the period of Ukrainian history that is generally referred to as the Ruin. This was the time after the death of Hetman Khmelnytsky, during which many power struggles within the Cossack elite took place. Arguably, these power struggles were instigated by the Russian Tsar in an effort to undermine the authority of the Cossacks. During his reign, Khmelnytsky managed to wrestle Ukraine out of Polish domination, but was later forced to enter into a new and uneasy relation with Russia in 1654. His successor, General Chancellor and close advisor Ivan Vyhovsky, was left to deal with Moscow's growing interference in Ukraine's internal affairs and even overt instigation of a civil war by way of supporting Cossack factions opposing Vyhovsky. In 1656, Russia signed a peace accord in Vilna with Poland in violation of the Treaty of Pereyaslav of 1654, and increased pressure on the Cossack Hetmanate. As a result, Vyhovsky entered into negotiations with the Poles, and concluded the Treaty of Hadyk on September 16, 1658. Under the planned new treaty, 3 voivodeships of central Ukraine were to become an equal constituent nation of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth along with Poland and Lithuania under the name of Principality of Rus, forming the Polish-Lithuanian Ruthenian Commonwealth. However, the Sejm ratified the treaty in a very limited version, where the idea of an independent Ruthenian principality was completely abandoned. The news of a Cossack-Polish alliance alarmed Moscow and the Ukrainian Cossacks opposing Vyhovsky to the extent that an expeditionary force was dispatched to Ukraine in the autumn of 1658 headed by Prince Grigory Romodanovsky. Moscow's military commander not only supported the election by Vyhovsky's opponents of a new rival hetman, but started actively to occupy towns held by Vyhovsky's supporters. The latter were mercilessly exterminated along with widespread abuse and robbery of the civilian population. The situation having escalated that far, open hostilities followed. Skirmishes and attacks occurred in different towns and regions throughout the country, the most prominent of which was the capture of Konotop by Cossacks of the Nizhyn and Chernihiv regiments headed by Ryhory Hulyanitsky, a colonel of Nizhyn. In the spring of 1659, a Russian army of 28,600 men, according documents of Razryadny Prikaz 100,000–150,000 according to the Chronicle of the Witness, and Sergei Solovyov was dispatched to Ukraine to assist Romodanovsky. The latter numbers are being criticized by modern historians as exaggerated. The army came to the Ukrainian border on January 30, 1659 and stood 40 days till Trubetskoy negotiated with Vyhovsky, since the Russian commander had instructions to persuade the Cossacks. Vyhovsky's rivals, the Cossack forces of commanders Bezpaly, Voronko and the Zaporozhian Cossacks of Barabash joined the Russian troops. After the negotiations failed, hostilities began. The Russian army together with anti-Vyhovsky insurgents defeated Vyhovsky's troops in the Battle of Romny and the Battle of Lokvitsia. After that, the supreme military commander Prince Alexei Trubetskoy decided to finish off the small 4,000 garrison of Konotop castle held by Cossacks of Ivan before proceeding in his pursuit of Vyhovsky. Siege of Konotop. Prince Trubetskoy's hopes for quick resolution of the Konotop standoff were dimmed when Halianitsky and his Cossacks refused to betray Hetman Vyhovsky and mounted a fierce and protracted defense of Konotop with only 4,000 Cossacks. According to a historian Markovich, on April 21, 1659, after a morning prayer, Trubetskoy ordered an all-out assault on the fortress's fortifications. The city was shelled, a few incendiary bombs were dropped inside, and the army moved on to capture the city. At one point Trubetskoy's troops broke inside the city walls, but were repelled by the fierce resistance of the Cossacks inside. After the fiasco of the initial assault, Trubetskoy abandoned his plans of a quick assault and proceeded to shell the city and to fill the moat with earth. The Cossacks stubbornly held on in spite of all the fire unleashed on the city. During the night, the earth put to fill in the moat was used to strengthen the city walls, and the besieged even undertook several counterattacks on Trubetskoy's besieging army. These attacks forced Prince Trubetskoy to move his military camp 10 kilometers away from the city and thereby split his forces between the main army at his HQ and the army besieging Konotop. Another attack on April 29 was also repelled, and the Russians lost close to 400 men and suffered around 3,000 wounded. Instead of a quick campaign, the siege dragged on for 70 days and gave Vyhovsky the much-needed time to prepare for the battle with the Russian army. The Hetman not only managed to organize his own troops, but secured support of his allies, the Crimean Tatars and the Poles. By agreement with the Tatars, the Khan Mehmed IV Giray, at the head of his 30,000-strong army, made his way towards Konotop in early summer of 1659, as did the 4,000-man Polish detachment with the support of Serbian, Moldavian and German mercenaries. Battle. By June 24, 1659, Vyhovsky and his allies approached the area and defeated a small reconnaissance detachment of the invaders' army near the village of Shapovalivka, several kilometers southwest of Konotop. According to the plan made that evening, the 30,000 Tatars were left in an ambush southeast of the river Sosnivka, and Vyhovsky's forces with Poles and mercenaries were positioned at the village of Sosnivka, south of the river with the same name. Meanwhile, Vyhovsky left the command of his forces to the brother of Ryhori Halianitsky, Stepan Halianitsky, and at the head of a small Cossack detachment left for Konotop. Early morning of June 27, 1659, Vyhovsky's detachment attacked Trubetskoy's army near Konotop, and using this sudden and unexpected attack managed to capture a sizable number of the enemy's horses and drive them away and further into the steppe. The enemy counterattacked, and Vyhovsky retreated across the bridge to the other bank of the Sosnivka river in the direction of his camp. Having learned of the assault, Prince Trubetskoy dispatched a detachment of 4,000 men noble cavalry and 2,000 Bezpaly Cossacks led by Prince Semyon Pozharsky across the river to pursue Ivan Vyhovsky. Trubetskoy's forces were thus divided between this detachment, those besieging Konotop. See, according to the Chronicle of the Eyewitness and Solovyov, the detachment of Pozharsky consisted of 30,000 men. On June 28, 1659, Prince Semyon Pozharsky, in his pursuit of the Cossacks, crossed the river Sosnivka and made his camp on the southern bank of the river. During the night, a small Cossack detachment led by Stepan Halianitsky, having padded the hoofs of the horses with cloth, stole under the cover of night behind the enemy lines and captured the bridge that Pozharsky used to cross the river. The bridge was dismantled and the river dammed, thus flooding the valley around it. Early on the morning of June 29, 1659, Vyhovsky at the head of a small detachment attacked Prince Pozharsky's army. After a little skirmish, he started to retreat, feigning a disorganized flight in the direction of his main forces. The unsuspecting Pozharsky ordered his army to pursue the enemy. Once the enemy's army entered Sosnivka, the Cossacks fired 3 cannon shots to give the signal to the Tatars and counterattacked with all the forces stationed at Sosnivka. Having discovered the trap, Prince Semyon Pozharsky ordered retreat, but his heavy cavalry got bogged down in the soggy ground created from the flooding the night before. At this moment the Tatars also advanced from the eastern flank, and the outright slaughter ensued. Almost all troops perished, with few of them captured alive. Among the captured were Prince Semyon Romanovich Pozharsky himself, Prince Semyon Petrovich Lvov, both Princes Butolans, Prince Leopoldov, Prince Skuratov, Prince Kurakin, and others. A relative of the great liberator of Moscow from the Poles, Dmitry Pozharsky, Prince Semyon Romanovich Pozharsky, was brought before the Khan of Crimea Mehmed IV Giray. Being forced to carry out acts of submissiveness, Pozharsky insulted the Khan and spat in his face. That he was promptly beheaded by the Tatars, and his severed head was dispatched with one of the captives to Prince Trubetskoy's camp. Having learned about the defeat of Pozharsky's army, Trubetskoy ordered the siege of Konotop lifted and started his retreat from Ukraine. At that moment the Cossacks of Halianitsky inside the fortress emerged from behind the walls and attacked the retreating army. Trubetskoy lost, in addition, most of his artillery, his military banners and the treasury. The retreating army defended well and Vyhovsky and the Tatars abandoned the 3-day-long pursuit near the Russian border. Aftermath and significance. As Trubetskoy's troops arrived in Putovl, the news of the battle reached Moscow as well. A prominent Russian historian of the 19th century, Sergei Solovyov, described it this way: "The bloom of Moscow's cavalry, troops that happily accomplished campaigns of year 54 and 55 have perished in one day. The victors got only about 5,000 captive. The unfortunate were led onto an open space and slaughtered like lambs." That was the agreement between the Crimean Khan and the Hetman of the Zaporozhian Cossacks. Never again was the Tsar of Moscow able to master an army that strong, in mourning clothes, showed himself Alexei Mikhailovich to the people, and the terror seized Moscow. The blow was so hard because it was unexpected, and it followed such illustrious successes. It was only recently that Dolgoruki brought to Moscow a captured Lithuanian hetman. Only recently was everyone talking about successes of Korvinsky, and now Trubetskoy, for whom everyone had hopes higher than for others, and who was a man devout and graceful in military affairs, killed in a fright for a foe, has ruined such a huge army. After capture of so many towns, after capture of the Lithuanian capital, the royal city trembled for its own security. In August, by Tsar's decree, people of all ranks hurried to build fortifications around Moscow. Often the Tsar and the boyars were present themselves during the construction, people from outlying areas. The families with meager belongings filled Moscow, and a rumor spread that the Tsar was leaving to beyond the Volga and Yaroslavl. Solovyev's emotional description, however, is challenged by modern historians, who point to the fact that his judgment is true only in the sense that at least 259 of those lost in the battle were officers or men of Moscow rank. The overall Russian casualties, according to the documents of the ambassador's chancellery, were 4,769 men. After the battle, the Ukrainian civil war of the ruin ensued. Hetman Vyhovsky and his allies had only been able to capture a few of Ukrainian towns held by his opponents when the first bad news arrived. Cossacks of the Zaporozhian host led by Ivan Serko attacked Crimean outposts in the south, and Giray was forced to leave him for his country. Several cities rebelled against Vyhovsky immediately: Lokvisia, Hadyark, Poltava, Romny. It was only 2 months after the battle when the citizens of Nizhyn gave a ceremonial welcome to Trubetskoy and swore an oath of allegiance to the Russian Tsar. The same month the Ukrainian citizens and Cossacks regiments in Kiev, Pereyaslav, Chernihiv swore an oath to the Tsar as well. Thus Vyhovsky was left to deal with the growing opposition to his rule. By the end of the year he was forced to resign and to flee to Poland, where he was later executed by the Poles in 1664. His defeat is largely attributed to his alliance with the very unpopular Poles and his inability to seek support among all the strata of the Ukrainian population, and not just among the rich Cossack elite, who were willing to betray him at every opportunity, either to Moscow or Warsaw. The civil war raged on, and the victors of the Konotop battle were soon forgotten, together with a number of other battles between East Slavs, such as Battle of Orsha. The Konotop battle was, with a few exceptions, an abandoned topic in Russian imperial and in Soviet historiography. This attitude towards this event is explained by the fact that it dispelled some Russian propaganda positions about the unity of East Slavs, in particular the ones about eternal friendship of Russian and Ukrainian peoples, and about natural desire of Ukrainians for union with Russia. For all the skill and the bravery of the Cossacks, especially those defending Konotop, it still remains a bitter victory. A victory that did not have any significant impact on the course of Ukrainian history, where fratricidal war of the ruin and personal ambitions of treacherous hetmans prevail. As such, the Konotop battle remains a classic example of the battle won and a war lost. Art and music. Numerous poems and odes have been written about the battle by the Ukrainian poets Yaroslav Utik, Olena Teliha, and P. Karpenko Krinovtsha. Numerous historic songs about the battle also entered the repertoire of the blind itinerant musicians known as Kobzars. The composer and bandurist Ryhorikite Sti in 1966 composed a monumental work based on Ukrainian Cossack folk songs for soloists, male chorus and orchestra to commemorate the battle. Recordings of this work have been released by the Ukrainian bandurist chorus with the renowned Russian singer Michael Minsky, and also by the Kiev Symphony.